If you're looking for the ultimate British luxury SUV, it's pretty hard to beat the appeal of a Land Rover Range Rover. In fact, for Land Rover, this nameplate has been so successful that they've managed to create 4 different models within the sub-brand, starting at the base Range Rover Evoque, going to the Velara, to the midsize Sport, and then of course the Big Daddy Range Rover that sits at the top of the hierarchy. Now, for me, the Sport has always been the perfect sweet spot thanks to its midsize proportions. It got a full redesign here in America back in 2023, now in its 3rd generation. Now, as you can see this week, Land Rover has sent us another variant of the Range Rover Sport. This is a 2025 model in the dynamic SE trim level with the P400 powertrain. What that essentially means is we have a 3-liter twin-charged engine under the hood that's an inline 6, delivering nearly 400 horsepower and getting up to 25 mpg because it's a mild hybrid. So the big question I want to answer for those of you who are looking for a British luxury SUV that's a little bit nicer and more prestigious versus your neighbor's BMW or Mercedes, how does the latest version of the Range Rover Sport stack up? Stay tuned to find out. Now, before we start talking about the unique exterior styling touches for the Range Rover Sport, let me go ahead and pop the hood and remind you guys the full powertrain specs. Now, here in America, if I can get this hood open, this vehicle is offered with 4 different powertrain options, starting at the base P360. This, however, is the sweet spot. Like I said in the introduction, it's known as the P400, offering around 395 horsepower. Now, if you guys are familiar with the JLR engine family, you'll know this engine internally known as the Ingenium. It's a 3-liter double overhead cam, turbo and supercharged. So it's a twin-charged inline 6-cylinder engine that's augmented by a 48-volt mild hybrid system. Now, the output numbers are 395 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. This engine was introduced in the previous generation Range Rover Sport a few years ago. It's been a wonderful powertrain combination hooked up to an 8-speed automatic transmission. And like I said earlier, 395 horsepower, 406 foot-pounds of torque. Fuel economy is rated at 20 in the city, 25 on the highway. That's on premium gas. You have just under a 24-gallon fuel tank. You're looking at just under 500 miles of range if you guys are driving this vehicle primarily out on the highway. Now, Land Rover says that should be good for 0 to 60 in around 5.2 seconds while hitting a top speed of around 150 miles an hour. Remember, this is the more dynamic Sport version of the Range Rover. Towing capacity also remains strong at 7,716 pounds, and as this car sits, it weighs in at just over 5,000 pounds. So it is around 400 pounds heavier versus the previous generation Range Rover Sport. Now, if you guys require more power, there's also a plug-in hybrid variant of this engine delivering around 454 horsepower, and because it has a 30 kilowatt-hour battery pack, around 50 miles of electric-only range. I'm hoping I can get my hands on that model at some point. And then, of course, at the top end remains that 4.4-liter V8 from BMW, making just over 520 horsepower. But let's go ahead and close up the hood here and talk about the exterior styling. Now, my particular test car is the SE Dynamic trim, so it's technically one above the base trim, which is known with the P360. This is an interesting color called Veracene Blue. I think I'm pronouncing that properly. It actually just looks gray to me, but this is actually like a grayish, cool blue exterior color. The front end, you can see, is instantly recognizable as a Range Rover. It was introduced back in 2023 for its 3rd generation. This vehicle, you can see, comes standard with these full LED headlights, which have an even slimmer design with the LED daytime running light, LED turn signal, the typical Land Rover light signature. You can see it boldly spells out Range Rover at the front on the hood with that new Range Rover grille with the Land Rover badge off to the side. You can see there's a front camera system here with the nicely integrated parking sensors. There's also some really nice bronze accents here on the front fascia along the lower splitter. I also like the way the grille actually looks with those functional air intake openings. You can get a black pack, which will black out the kind of copper accents, but I actually really like the copper accents. I would just kind of leave that instead of going with the all black look. But overall, moving around the side profile, this vehicle is built on the MLA Flex platform. So that's sharing a platform, of course, with the Big Daddy Range Rover, which is technically a different platform versus the Velar and the Evoque. The Velar and the Evoque just feel so different versus the Big Daddy Range Rover and this Range Rover Sport. And that's particularly one of the reasons why this car is such a top seller for them. But you can see the wheels. These are the standard 21-inch wheels that you get on all Range Rover Sports. They actually look horrible with the silver finish. Land Rover offers a black finish. They just kind of look like rental car spec wheels, so I would personally skip these wheels. They're riding on a 275/50 R21 Pirelli Scorpio all-season tire. Land Rover offers a choice to upgrade to a 22-inch wheel or a 23-inch wheel. I think the 22-inch wheels will be the sweet spot. You can also spec in a red painted or black painted caliper with upgraded Brembo brakes. These are the standard brakes, but all Range Rovers come with an adaptive air suspension. I have it in its standard ride height mode right now, offering around 8.5 inches of ground clearance, but you can jack it up to offer around 11 inches of ground clearance in the off-road mode. You can see on this little side piece here, there's also some more of that copper with the black accents. There's the power folding mirrors, which are black painted. You can see the A-pillar is nice and blacked out. There's also a standard panoramic sunroof, which also opens up to vent air. And then backing away, you can see this vehicle is the right size with a 118-inch long wheelbase and 194.7-inch overall length. So this is literally the same size as the current generation BMW X5, and that's why the Range Rover Sport is kind of like a great vehicle size-wise, because it's kind of just the perfect size. And then looking at the rear, you can see this is how you can tell primarily this is the new generation, because the front end of this car kind of looks like the previous generation, but you can see it has a cleaned up look here with the slimmer, even slimmer full LED taillights, the Range Rover boldly spelled out the back. It's very minimalistic back here. There's a small little subtle sport badge. You can see the rear bumper houses dual exhausts, which are rectangular looking versus the quad outlet exhaust on the V8 model. You can see the rear wiper is nice and hidden underneath the rear spoiler, and there's also a digital camera rear view mirror on this car that's located, I believe, right there on that shark fin antenna. That kind of helps to clean up the look, and it also improves your rear visibility. Now, a power liftgate is going to be standard. The hands-free function is going to be available, and then you can see this vehicle is only offered, I believe, as a 2-row model here in the US, but you get around just under 32 cubic feet of total storage space back here. There's also a really nice little retractable cargo cover. You can see also my test car has the interior protection package and cargo package, so it has that rubber floor mat. If you lift this up here, you can see there's also a little partition that you can open up. It'll kind of help separate your cargo, keep it from flying around. And then if you lift this up over here to the side, you can see there is a temporary spare tire on this vehicle. And for $300 extra, you can spec in a full-size spare with a matching alloy. That's one of the unique touches of the Range Rover. If you want to fold down the back seats, you can see they are power folding, and that'll expand the cargo to around 56 cubic feet of total storage space, which is pretty usable. However, something like the BMW X5 offers roughly 20 to 25 more cubic feet of space, so I am a little disappointed to see the cargo area of this vehicle to be a little on the smaller side. So once you move past the exterior design of this vehicle, which can be a little too conservative, this is where Land Rover really pulled out all the stops to deliver a world-class luxury interior. Before we get inside, however, let me show you guys the key fob. You can see this is the current intelligent access key that comes with every version of the Range Rover. It's a nice key fob, a little bit large in its design, but it feels heavy, it feels high quality. I like the chrome and the black trim, the matte black trim around the key, and you can see it has usual buttons here for lock, unlock. You can also flash the headlights, I think, with that power liftgate, and then a panic function. This key, again, is going to be a little bulky if you guys don't want to carry around a big key. But as you approach the vehicle, you can see this car has pop-out retractable door handles, which usually the car can sense when you're approaching the vehicle. It actually will automatically unlock the door and pop out the door handles. And it also has the walk-away auto lock feature. When you have that feature turned on, you can see the mirrors are power folding. But once the door handle pops out, pull on it, and you can see it reveals an interior that just looks absolutely stunning. This is the optional upgraded caraway and ebony two-tone Windsor full leather interior. This is the upgraded leather with this beautiful kind of caramel and black two-tone look to it. The seats adjust in 22 different ways. The Windsor leather is also one of the plushest leather that I've ever felt. It's also got really incredibly soft padding. And with so many different ways to adjust the seats, you can easily get a comfortable driving position. Sadly, if you guys want massaging seats, you have to step it up to the autobiography trim. I couldn't see that option in the SE trim level here, at least on Land Rover's US build site. I also love the way the steering wheel looks with the two-tone look. Looking at the door panel, you can see it has the same beautiful Windsor leather at this top portion where it's really soft and plush. I also love the Meridian sound system with this kind of cloth look for the speaker grille. Although I think my test car actually doesn't have a speaker in here. You can get that when you go for the upgraded Meridian. This is the standard Meridian, which puts the speaker up here. You can see real aluminum trim there, nice and padded over here where you'd rest your elbows. And it's also nice and soft, padded down on the lower portion with this kind of beautiful black chrome throughout the door panels, throughout the window controls. You also have really high quality feeling Windows switchgear, and there's also 3-person memory seats, which are on the driver and on the front passenger side. So overall, the interior definitely will make a really positive impression, and it's a stark contrast versus the slightly conservative and boring looks of the exterior of my particular test car. Now, stepping inside with the 8.5 inches of ground clearance, there is a little bit of a step up height. You can lower the suspension into an access height if you'd like. As I shut the door, The door has a pretty solid sounding thunk, and my test car is missing the soft close feature, which is an a la carte option. Remember, this is built on the new MLA Flex architecture, something that it shares with the big Range Rover. Now, starting the vehicle up, start-stop button is located down here by the shifter. And because this vehicle is a mild hybrid, it doesn't have a traditional starter noise. It just kind of whirs to life. And the engine itself doesn't let you rev it much, but it is a smooth engine. I like the sound of it. I love the feel of a straight six. I think that's just a really great powertrain to kind of drive around in. This is one of the better powertrains that you're going to find in the industry. Now, going over here back to the infotainment system or the rest of the interior, you can see if you guys have been in the regular Range Rover, this is going to feel pretty familiar. In fact, it's not really all that different looking from the previous generation, but the technology has certainly been improved. Like I said earlier, the steering wheel has a really nice look to it with the two-tone look. You have these satisfying metal paddles behind the wheel to control the 8-speed auto. Some actual buttons here to control the adaptive cruise control, to turn on the heated steering wheel, to turn on your lane keep assist. The wheel itself has a power tilt telescoping design, although the control for it is located over here. Jaguar and Land Rover tends to do that, and I think Porsche does that as well. There's also an optional heads-up display that my test car has for an extra $1,000. And then in terms of the materials on the dash, you can see beautiful real leather on the upper portion here, more soft leather down here, more of that dark aluminum trim along the dash vents, along that lower portion there, which looks great. You have these really high-quality feeling switch gear as well, which is nice. The horn, it sounds as I expected it to, given the size of the vehicle. It's got a good tone to it, which is nice. The infotainment system, you can see this is the 13.1-inch Pivi Pro infotainment system that pairs nicely with the fully digital 13.7-inch instrument cluster. Actually, I may have that wrong. This is 13.1, this is 13.7. But regardless, the graphics look good. That screen isn't really all that customizable. You can, again, access the volume controls here and turn on your driver assist from here. But at least it's nice and bright. It does include wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. Those are all your usual widgets that you can access with the vehicle. You can go into your different terrain responses. You can adjust the ambient lighting in this car, although my test car is missing the upgraded ambient lighting with 30 different colors. You also go back to your camera's views, which, as you can see, it's a little bit slow to respond, but when you start looking around the cameras, you can see that full 360 camera really gives you great quality and resolution, and there's just so many different views where you can easily drive this vehicle into a tight parking area, or if you're planning to go off-roading, Land Rover kind of makes it easy there. So love the way this looks. You can also go into like an off-road view there with different camera angles, go into a tow view as well. So everything that you want to adjust is basically located here in the screen, which takes a little bit of getting used to. In fact, there's not even a volume knob in here, although there is a volume slider here on the steering wheel. If you want to adjust the audio levels, you have to go over here to the side of the screen, which I don't love. Your climate control is also located here on the screen. It does have haptic feedback, and you can see your heated and cooled seats are located here. Land Rover does not let you turn on both the heat and cooling function like the German brands let you do. The heated steering wheel is located here on the actual steering wheel. As you can see, it has that haptic feedback, but you can turn that feature on and off. And overall, you can see the look of this screen is certainly very nice. There's also embedded GPS right here. If you want to pull the GPS up, you can see it's nothing super special, but it certainly has a nice upscale look to it. I like how the screen has a floating design. I think it's a good size. It's just the software behind it can be a little bit slow and laggy, which I don't love. Now, down here in the center console area, or the center stack, you can see it's very simplified. In fact, Land Rover did update the center console compared to the 2023 that I first tested. Before, there was actually separate climate knobs located here. As you can see, it's now been moved into the screen, which isn't my favorite. And the reason for that is because when you open this up, the wireless phone charger is now here. They've adjusted the location of it. Before, it used to kind of sit on this little shelf here, and if you accelerated fast, the phone would slide out under hard acceleration. So they fixed that by adjusting this here, but they got rid of those knobs and buttons for the climate and put it in the screen. And they also got rid of your drive mode selector, which was a separate knob here. Instead, again, it's very simple. This controls the 8-speed auto. There's a trigger at the front. You push it all the way forward to go into drive, kick it back to go into, or to reverse, I'm sorry, kick it back to go into drive, kick it again to go to sport, and then push the P button here to go to park. If you want to adjust the drive mode now, you have to go touch on that, which brings up the drive mode here from dynamic, comfort, eco, and you can go to an off-road mode or the auto terrain response mode. So I don't like how Land Rover has simplified this too much. They should have left the drive mode selector, and they should have figured out a way to keep the actual knobs for the climate control function. This vehicle also has voice commands. If you say Land Rover, it'll kind of wake it up, which is annoying. I like the aluminum trim here over the cup holders. Open that up, you can see it's nothing super fancy, but you can, as you can see, slide that open to reveal an even deeper storage compartment. There's another USB-C charging port over there, which is nice. There's also a nice padded center console here. Open this up, you can see my test car is missing the refrigerator, but there's a pretty decent amount of storage in there. And then I also like the two separate armrests that you get here. So you can basically open this up and you don't have to worry about making the passenger here move their arm if they are using it as an armrest, which is kind of a nice touch. The seats, like I said earlier, super high quality leather. They feel really plush. The seats have really beautiful padding, and you can also adjust it in 22 different ways. I just think that the massaging seats should have been included even at this price point. And in terms of the glove box, you can see there's an upper glove box here that opens up, which is really nice. There's also another 12-volt power outlet there. If you open that up, you can see it's a traditional glove box. It's damped and lined with felt. It offers a decent amount of additional storage. My test car has the optional digital camera rearview mirror. I forgot how much it cost. I think it was like $400, but that's really nice for improving your rear road visibility. There's a woven material on the headliner. You can get a full-on ultra suede material. And then you can see the big sunroof does open up to basically tilt and to also vent air, which is a really nice touch as well. Lets in a lot of light. There's also a built-in wind deflector there, which is great. It only opens up over the two front seats. That's the largest that it opens, so it's not great. There's also a retractable shade, which is nice. I also like the way the grab handles on the ceiling looks. They also just have a high quality feel. And overall, the interior continues to impress me with its high quality materials. Not a single squeak and rattle. What really just bothers me is the software behind the Preview Pro infotainment system, which I'm hoping they can address at some point. And the standard Meridian sound system sounds good, but there's two different upgrades that you can get going all the way up to like a $5,000 unit with nearly 30 speakers. But let's go ahead and hop into the back seat of this model. And you can see what the interior space is like. Now, this vehicle is only a 2-row here in the US, and you can see the back seats are certainly pretty generous. You have just under 38 inches of legroom back here, which 38 inches is a pretty good amount. You can see that beautiful two-tone look carries over, and these seats are also heated and ventilated. The heat function is standard. The ventilation is optional, like an extra $350. You can also fold these seats down, like I said earlier, and you can see the headrest back here also really plush. You can also adjust them forward and back and up and down, which is really nice. You also have these optional retractable shades, which are manual, which a lot of people really prefer. And I also love the leather here, that same kind of speaker cover over the back, although this actually does house the Meridian speaker. Beautiful padded leather with some aluminum trim. And these seats, like I said, you can actually power recline the seats, which they actually recline pretty decent amount, so that allows you to kind of get comfortable. It looks like they don't slide forward and back, and then you can see here the door handles are nice and low. They have that beautiful dark aluminum trim, and it's even soft padded and soft down on this lower portion here, which is a really nice touch. Now stepping inside, you can see getting into the back seat area, this is pretty much where I have the seat to drive. So legroom space isn't class leading, but it's pretty comparable to the last BMW X5 or Lexus RX that I was testing earlier this year. I can get back here and cross my legs and get comfortable. There is not a flat floor here in the middle. You do have rear seat air vents. You can see accessing your heated seat is located here. These are the same kind of knobs that Land Rover used to put in the front of the vehicle. So that's kind of what I was missing, is just being able to kind of do this. You also have rear seat air vents. Like I said, there's two USB-C charging ports down here that's kind of buried down there along with a power outlet. No separate climate zones. That is optional as part of a climate pack that my test car is missing. If you want to fold this down, you can see there's an armrest that gives you additional storage and cup holders as well, which is a nice touch. And then in terms of the headroom space, you can see at 5'7", I have a solid maybe 2 inches of additional head clearance, which is nice. This sunroof comes into the back seat, which lets in even more light, although I don't love this little bar here that takes up some of your actual, light coming through. But overall, the back seat is certainly usable for average size adults, but just keep in mind some competitors do offer a little bit more legroom space. So here we are back behind the wheel of the 3rd generation Range Rover Sport. If you guys remember our last review of the 2023 version, that was actually the P530 first edition, which means it had a 4.4 liter BMW sourced twin turbo V8 under the hood. That was a very impressive powertrain in a BMW. It was even nicer in a Range Rover. However, this time we are in the P400, which is arguably the more popular powertrain choice in the Land Rover family. I mean, Land Rover offers basically this engine in 2 different tunes. There's a plug-in hybrid of this powertrain, and then of course there's that V8 twin turbo, which this one being the sweet spot at just under 400 horsepower, 406 pound-feet of torque. It is hooked up through an 8-speed automatic transmission with a full-time all-wheel drive system. You can get a low-range transfer case like my test car has for an extra $350. Land Rover says this model should be good for 0 to 60 in 5.2 seconds. The last time I tested this powertrain, I think I was in the Range Rover, the Big Daddy. Remember, this is one notch below it, and I actually think this might be the sweet spot in terms of size for a vehicle like this, because this is about the same size as like a BMW X5. But with, again, around 395 horsepower, this should be a pretty quick car in day-to-day usage. So let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise here on our usual stretch of road. We'll brake torque it. Ooh! Whoa! That shifted nice and harsh. Wow, 4.98 seconds there. And it actually does have launch control, because when you brake torque it, it actually says dynamic launch activated. And you can feel it building up the boost. 4.98 seconds is not what I was expecting, because the V8 model that I tested a year and a half ago did it in just over 4 seconds. So there's really no need to go for the V8. The plug-in hybrid model of this powertrain supposedly is around 0.1 seconds slower, and that's because that big 30-ish kilowatt-hour battery pack adds around 800 pounds of weight. So this model here weighs just over 5,000 pounds. But what I love about this powertrain is the sound. It is that typical straight 6 snarl. It's hooked up to a smooth shifting and responsive 8-speed ZF automatic, and I really love this transmission. We're just going to floor it this time here. We're not going to brake torque it. Noticeably slower. Still sounds good though. 6.1 seconds there. Now that's with it more going slightly uphill. The launch, I would say with enabling the launch control, you could probably do it, or it's probably shaving around a half a second off that my quickest time. So I'd say 5.5 seconds is probably the norm for a car like this, which, to be honest, is going to be fast enough for most people. This powertrain, I believe, just has the perfect balance between efficiency, between acceleration, between refinement. It sounds really good. The Sport is always going to be the more, dynamically, visceral feeling of the Range Rover family, because as you guys know, there's 4 different models, starting at the Evoque, the Velarz, the compact offering. This is the mid-size offering, and then there's the Big Daddy Range Rover, which is between either 4 to 12 inches longer versus this car. But putting my foot down, you can feel the boost build up. There's that electrified mild hybrid assist, which essentially kind of fills in the gaps at lower speeds to kind of help mitigate the turbo lag, and it also helps with the start-stop technology in this car to be a little bit more seamless. But with its all-independent suspension in dynamic mode here, adaptive air suspension as well, this thing rides and handles like a dream. And that's what I love about the Sport. That's personally why this is my favorite member of the Range Rover family, especially if you guys are an enthusiast. This essentially just drives like a tall, mid-size sports sedan, which is fabulous. The steering has surprisingly decent amounts of feedback coming through from the tires. It's also relatively quick and responsive as well. But what shocks me is just how comfortable this car is to drive. It's comfortable, yet it's also really dynamic. The all-wheel drive system as well can actually feel like it's got some form of torque vectoring, which I really love. And overall, this thing just feels like such an excellent daily driver. It's no wonder that it's one of Land Rover's most popular models. It just feels like a car that has that tank-like feel as you go down the road. You have this really commanding view of the road as well. You sit up nice and high. There's not a single squeak and rattle in this interior as well. Remember, Land Rovers aren't known for reliability, but in terms of luxury feel, they definitely have the luxury feel that I expect when you have a vehicle with this kind of price tag. Let's try another run here. This time, no brake torquing it. But we are on level ground. 5.8 seconds there. So again, the launch is actually shaving almost a second off the 0 to 60 time, which is really impressive. I think that you really don't need any more power than this. And it's not surprising to me why this is the best-selling powertrain in the Range Rover Sport family. It's just really smooth, it's really responsive, very little complaints there. But let's go ahead and switch the drive mode here into its comfort setting, because in comfort, that noise that you're hearing, that straight 6 noise, is being amplified slightly, I believe. But in this mode, it's a little bit quieter. We'll switch the transmission into just its regular drive mode. And this is where, the Range Rover Sport just reminds you this is an ultra luxury British SUV. It just coddles you in luxury. It's so unbelievably quiet in here. and there's very little road and wind noise. The visibility is excellent. The seats also so plush. These are one of my favorite seats in the segment. I just didn't realize that Land Rover really outdid themselves in terms of the seat comfort for this new generation. The one thing that my test car is missing is massaging seats, which with a 6-figure price tag like this, I really kind of expected massaging seats. You have to step it up even further to the autobiography trim, which is like an extra 20 grand more than what I'm driving here to get the massaging seats. You can't even get it, at least not on the Land Rover build site when I was trying to configure this car, with massaging seats on the Dynamic SE trim level of this car. But hey, that's kind of like a first world problem because the heat and ventilation function works well. These are still 22-way power adjustable seats. The heated steering wheel also feels nice. The interior quality in this vehicle, it smells really expensive. I love that. The infotainment system, also the 13.1-inch Pivi Pro system. Over the years, Land Rover has been updating the software. I mean, I really like the way the CarPlay looks right there. You can see, earlier I wasn't able to show you that, but you can see it takes up almost the entire screen. You can kind of, see how crystal clear it is. The icons are large, so it's also really close to me here, so I've got a really easy reach if I want to kind of manipulate whatever I want to on the actual screen, which is nice. In terms of driver assistance tech, this car also has Land Rover's full speed range adaptive cruise, lane keep assist. It's not like true hands-free like you get in some luxury rivals. And then in terms of fuel efficiency, this is where the Range Rover Sport is rated at 20 in the city, 25 on the highway. In my weeks worth of testing, I was averaging around 19 mpg in mostly city driving. On the highway, this thing can actually do close to 25. I was pretty close to getting the 25 mpg. With its very large 24-gallon fuel tank, you're looking at just under 500 miles of range on a full tank. I was only getting around 380 in my actual testing, so that was mostly city driving. It is a big gas tank, so you're going to be spending a lot of money to fill it up. If you guys go for the plug-in hybrid, it reduces the fuel tank capacity to, I believe, 18 gallons, and that's because the big battery has to go somewhere and it takes up some space where the bigger fuel tank would be. So technically the plug-in hybrid, which offers 50 miles of electric-only range, should also have less total range than this model when you're looking at highway. Although highway, technically this model is rated at 22 combined, the plug-in is rated at 21 combined, so go figure. The heavier, 800-pound heavier plug-in technically is less fuel efficient in day-to-day usage if you don't have the battery recharged all the time, and that's kind of one of the things. If you guys go for the plug-in, you need to make sure you actually plug in that battery and keep it charged and use it as an EV, because that's kind of where the savings comes into play and just where it gives you that extra efficiency part. But overall, I love the Range Rover Sport. I mean, out of the entire Range Rover family, the Evoque's probably my least favorite, then followed by the Velar, then the Big Daddy Range Rover, then this Sport is the sweet spots for me. I mean, I like the size of this vehicle, I like the luxury, I like the imposingness, the tank-like feel, and it's no wonder that this vehicle remains an extremely popular option for those of you who want the ultimate British ultra-luxury SUV. So after spending a full week with the latest version of the Range Rover Sport with the more popular powertrain option, I have to say this vehicle remains one of my favorite luxury SUVs, especially if you guys are just tired of all the BMW X5s and Mercedes GLEs or Lexus RXs or even Porsche Cayennes. There is something special about this car. I mean, yes, there are a ton of Range Rovers out there because the Range Rover lineup roughly accounts for around 60% of the total Land Rover sales, while the Range Rover Sport accounts for about 30% of the total Range Rover family sales units here in America. The company managed to do just under 12,000 units in the US last year, which was kind of a fluke because that was when this generation was first being rolled out. This year they are on track to do nearly 20,000 units, which again is a pretty good chunk of sales. It pretty much almost matches the Big Daddy Range Rover in terms of overall volume. But as you guys saw, the powertrain of this P400 is a wonderful combination. 0 to 60 was just under 5 seconds, mid 5 seconds if you guys don't use the launch control. The transmission is smooth, the engine is refined, and also makes really sweet sounds, and it's also one of the quietest interiors, one of the most comfortable seats. It has really plush materials, high build quality. It just feels like a special car that feels really well made. It smells expensive on the inside. It's got a relatively roomy back seat, a usable cargo area, and of course it has that Land Rover name where it promises the off-road capability if you want it, but it also has really sweet on-road dynamics. Impressive handling, feels just like a tall sports sedan, but it also has one of the best ride qualities in the industry, and that's kind of where it puts something like the Lexus GX to shame because it just has a really jittery ride quality, and that's something that Lexus, I think, needs to work very heavily on. Now, if you guys are looking to put a Range Rover Sport in your driveway, it is going to cost you a pretty penny. This car is essentially starts at $83,700 for the base P360. If you guys want to go up to the SE Dynamic with the P400 engine, it'll cost you $7,000 more at just over 90 grand. Now, my test car has a relatively low amount of options. Basically, from the upcharge for the paint, it has like a climate package, it has like a cargo management package, it has a couple of a la carte options like the head-up display. All in, my test car with destination comes in at just over 100 grand, 100,220, which is, I know, a lot of money for a car that doesn't look that expensive on the outside, especially when you have it with these base wheels. But you can get a black finish version of these wheels or spec in a 22 or 23-inch wheel for $1,000 to around $3,000, which I would highly recommend. Land Rover also offers a beautiful British Racing Green on this car on their configure site, which is $8,500 extra, but it really makes this car feel a lot more special. So it really depends on how you're going to spec this vehicle out. Obviously, comparing this car to a BMW X5, the Range Rover Sport is around $20,000 to $30,000 more, literally $30,000 more than a Lexus RX. A Porsche Cayenne is pretty close in price. But again, the Cayenne doesn't feel quite as nice on the inside. The interior isn't quite as luxurious. It feels just as sporty, but it also doesn't offer as much interior space. So there is something still very appealing about the Range Rover Sport. Just be sure you're okay with the extra expensive price tag. And also, I would personally probably lease one of these vehicles. I wouldn't want to have to deal with this thing when the warranty is over, because as you guys know, Land Rover doesn't really have a reputation for reliability, even though they do have a really strong reputation for build quality and really luxurious interiors. But with all that said, hope you guys have enjoyed my latest overview on the brand new 2025 Range Rover Sport. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, be sure to follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews. Like us on Facebook, and as always, guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.